Sure. Who didn't have their coffee? Raise their hand. Me. I need a second one. Well, good morning. Welcome. Bienvenue. My name is Jim Salager. I got to work on my French. You guys can tell me how poorly it is. I'm thrilled to be here today to welcome everybody to Bordeaux. I'm going to go through a few intro slides this morning just to kind of kick the day off here. How many people have never been to a Userspace event before? Raise their hand. Wow, so I think more than half of our crowd looks new. All right, let's do a little test, and we'll start with the smallest one. How many people are here from North America? Raise your hand. Oh, more than I would have guessed. Any South Americans here? Okay, let's do Asia. I know our China team is here. That's good. And the rest, Europe? Anybody I'm missing? Anybody from Africa? Middle East? Maybe a couple. All right. Good. That's exactly what we wanted as a global audience here, and that's fantastic to see. For those of you who have been to Userspace events before, you know that for the past, is it 3 or 4 years? 4 years, I think, we've hosted this in Dublin. It started out of, frankly, convenience in the beginning. Convenience because Intel has a significantly large team on the west side of Ireland in Shannon, and it was just easy to be able to bring our whole team over and have the rest of the community join there. It was also very convenient because I have an affinity for Guinness, so that worked out well. And it also, I believe the first year was when there was a Rugby World Cup and I think the Soccer Qualifier World Cup of Ireland versus Germany. I think that was the first year. And shockingly, Ireland won, which led to a long night. But I am very thrilled that we're here in Bordeaux. And I put up this map because I would guess certainly I'll speak from an American perspective. If someone thinks France, they think, what city? Paris. And that's it. And most Americans would be like, well, it's just Paris, right? And clearly, it's much, much more than Paris. I've had the luck and joy to do a 3-week tour of France a few years ago on a extended holiday from Intel. I've had the excitement to ski Val d'Isère in the Alps during the wintertime and have just enjoyed all my time in France. This is my first time in Bordeaux. So thank you for anyone local here hosting me and the French people, Thomas and others. It's just been terrific. I hope everyone else also gets a chance to get out and see a little bit of the city and the area because it's a fantastic place to be. Couple things to talk about. So we're in France, and what I love about the French is their propensity to get out and protest for what they feel very strongly for. In the U.S., those of you who follow politics, there's quite a few people who feel very strongly in the U.S., but you don't see nearly the size of the protests and the frequency of the protests that you do in France. And for that, I wish Americans could take a lesson from them to get out and fight for what you believe in. There's a few groups that do it, but not nearly as many. But there also is some sad news we had earlier this year. This should build. I guess it didn't build. Do I not? Oh, did you guys load the PDF instead of the PowerPoint? I bet they did. Okay. So unfortunately, the picture behind it was the April fire at Notre Dame. I imagine everyone in this room saw those flames come out of that cathedral. If you've been in there before, you know how special it was. It's just a tragic, tragic story. But in that story, there are some heroic stories. If you read about the braveness of the firefighters rushing in to save the towers, when the backstory of that came out, I was tremendously moved myself. I put a few links up here. If you yourself are so moved to help contribute to rebuilding the cathedral, please do. When I researched this last night, I was pleased to learn they've raised over $1 billion in funds to rebuild the cathedral. So I don't know how many years it'll take. Certainly it'll be quite a few, but I'm looking forward to a return visit someday. The other thing that is traditionally French is the notion of going on a labor strike. This is something that Americans have gotten a little bit of a notice of. In fact, just last week, you'll see the slide on, I guess it's the top right, these are General Motors workers in the U.S. that have gone on strike at an automotive plant. If you follow the American car manufacturing, it's been in decline for quite a few years, which means shutting down and shuttering plants, and the workers protesting that. So this is just a little smattering. The folks at Ryanair have gone on strike. The top left and bottom right photos, I didn't realize the transit workers, at least in Paris, are on strike. So there's a few strikes going on. It keeps us on our toes. If you're traveling, it's always best when traveling through France to take a look and see if the transit workers are on strike, because it could have you stranded a few days. So, let me walk through some of the details here today. I think they loaded a PDF because this all was supposed to be a build, which means the rest of my build slides are not going to work out well either, which is a pity. So on the back of your badge, has everyone found the Wi-Fi access code? Not that you need it, but if you do need it, it's on the back of your badge. We are streaming first time ever, so thank you for the technicians who have made this work on YouTube. So if your friends aren't here and wish they were, let them know. They can jump on live right now and watch us streaming live. The presentations, I believe all or most of them are at the sketch.com site. In that site, you'll see a couple things. You'll see the names of the speakers, the agenda, and links to the presentations. If the presentations aren't there now, they will be there shortly, and certainly by the end of the conference, all of them will be there. I think all the presenters, how many presenters are in the room? Raise your hand. So a good number, good portion of folks here. That's excellent. Make sure David has your slides up in the top if he hasn't already. And when it's your turn, when the person before you is speaking, you should be up top getting mic'd up, ready to go. When you're done, please go up there and return your microphone so we can keep this going seamlessly throughout the day. We will have 4 hosts. Is Vincent in here somewhere? I haven't seen him yet. No? Tonight, okay. Vincent, Frank, Yvonne, and Olivier are going to be our hosts and introducing speakers throughout the day, so I appreciate their help. Haven't seen all those folks in quite a while. If you are on social media, we have a hashtag, DPDK Userspace. You can also tag it with DPDK or tag the project directly. If you need a quiet place to have a meeting, either with others or phone call, etc., you can talk to the hostesses up top. There's a meeting just down the hallway here, meeting room that's available. The reception area out where you were this morning is where all the breaks, lunch, and everything else will happen. And the one thing that you hopefully have seen the signs, no food or drink in here with the exception of water. Anybody sneak anything in? Now's your chance to take it back out. So, okay. A couple things about this venue. It is a fantastic venue. I'll share with you a small coincidental story. One of my neighbors in Phoenix, Arizona lives directly across the street, and about a week and a half ago, I saw her leaving for the airport. I said, "Where are you going?" "Well, I'm going to Europe for about 2.5 weeks. We're going to go hike the Dolomites in Italy. Then we're going to the French wine country." I said, "Oh, where are you going?" "Oh, I'm going to Bordeaux." I said, "When are you going to be there?" In exactly the same time. So I sent her a text when I arrived on Tuesday. She said, "Oh, you have to go to the wine museum. It's fantastic." And she was referring to this place. So one American who's an avid wine drinker comes on vacation here and goes to the place that we happen to be at. So I definitely recommend you get out and see this place. I do ask that you respect it. It is open for business outside of here. You'll see people, visitors walking around. Those people have paid to be here. So just please respect them and their space. As I said earlier, no food or drink in here. If you have to smoke, it has to be outside in the front. I'd recommend a smoke-free day for you. Let's start kicking the habit now if you are a smoker. In your badge, you should have a ticket that gets you into the exhibit. That ticket will get you in fact, twice. So you can choose when you want to use your 2 entries for that. If you look at the agenda, you're like, wow, this coming talk is like boring beyond belief, like the one I'm giving right now. You could instead skip out and go in the museum. Alternatively, you could go towards the end of the day. The schedule is such that 5 to 6 tomorrow works out to be a really good time to go. So I definitely recommend you at least carve out that amount of time for it. They do have headphones available. I don't know if it's an additional fee or not, but they do have headphones available for translation. if you go through there if you aren't a French speaker, native or otherwise. And lastly, I'm told there is a wine experience coming during our cocktail reception this evening, I believe. So I don't know anything about it, so I can't give you any secrets on it other than I'm looking forward to it myself. The schedule for the day, see this is another slide that was supposed to come up as a build, but the schedule for the day, I'm not going to walk through it because again, you can all find this on Sketch. What I will point out, there are breaks and lunches scheduled throughout, a cocktail reception at the end of the day today, and just before our cocktail reception, we are going to have a little award ceremony, so please do stick around for that. You never know, you might just win something. Schedule for tomorrow is also posted online. Again, I'm not going to read through this myself. You can read through it yourself at your leisure, and the URL at the top, it's Sketch to go see it. And if you go to sketch.com and just search on DPDK, it comes up right away. For those of you who haven't been to Userspace events before, Userspace is not a you sit and listen while people up here talk. Userspace is an interactive dialogue between contributors, developers, community members, consumers, and anybody else who's interested enough to show up here. So thank you for showing up. And now I'll ask that you get engaged in the conversations. When someone's presenting something, if you don't understand it, if you have a question, if you want to challenge them, raise your hand and do that. That's what Userspace is all about. It's an interactive, community engaging event. Very different from all the other events we do around the world. I do ask that you respect the presenters. Do we have microphones to use? Okay, so we'll have a couple microphones we can hand out. Again, that helps everyone else here, and that helps the people on the live stream also here, and it keeps the videos that we record and post later on so that everyone can hear both the questions and the answers. If you have a short question, you can just ask the presenter to repeat the question so it does get captured. The other thing I'll ask is that let's make sure we keep a single conversation. So don't start having sort of your own conversation there while someone over here is trying to ask the presenter some questions. And of course, respect them enough. If you get a phone call or you have something else going on, please just step out into the auditorium, into the salon and have your conversation there. Do continue the conversations. Again, this is your chance to meet the people that you may only know by seeing their name on the mailing list, by sending questions to them on the user developer list, etc. These people are here. I think a large portion of our community is here. People that have contributed code to DPDK raise their hand. So I think that's at least 40% of the audience, maybe a bit more. So these are the people that help make this project successful. So see them, learn from them, and teach them something throughout the day and tomorrow. We have a security keys corner. If you didn't see it, it's as you go up the stairs, it's on the back left. And what I'd ask you to do is go and learn something about best known methods for security and privacy. We're going to get this started so we can train people in some of these methods, and in the future we hope to continue this and eventually get to the point where we'll have privacy keys available for everybody. You may have to purchase those because they aren't necessarily cheap, but we're going to work towards that in the future. If you are a maintainer or a contributor, I'd personally like to say it's mandatory for you to stop in there, but of course it isn't, so I will strongly encourage you. And if you're not, please go and learn so that dimension of your contributor to be knowledge can be complete. It will be open during breaks and lunch, and anytime there's somebody standing there. I think it's Luca is managing, I think. Right? Okay. Is he in here somewhere? Okay, there we go. So when you see him over there, ask him some questions. Okay, these events obviously cost some money to put on. Those of you who have been around long enough know that when we sort of assembled this project in the Linux Foundation, one of the key reasons was that we'd be able to consolidate some of the funds to put events on, such as this. Well, that money only goes so far, and then we look for additional sponsorships to help pay for the rest of the event. So on this slide, you'll see sponsors listed. So first, I'd like to acknowledge Intel for sponsoring the videos that are being recorded today. I'd like to thank F5 Networks for sponsoring the security key display up there. And I'd like to thank ARM, Mellanox, and Red Hat for sponsoring the evening reception today. Can we get a round of applause for all the sponsors, please? All right, next couple slides, I want to just move into the release stats. Trick question for people who haven't been here before. How many DPDK releases per year? Too many, says one of the regular developers. 4. Can anybody rattle off what they are? 19, is it 02? What's the first one? 02, 05, 08, and 11. Strategically dotted to get around Chinese New Year, to get around European summer holidays, to get around Christmas holidays, and trying to navigate the rest of the global calendar. And I think it's worked fairly well. Would you agree, Thomas? I think it has. But it seems that every time of year, and I don't have any insights on how 1911 is shaping up, whether it's big or small, but it seems that we have bigger and bigger releases on a regular basis. These are some of the stats that one of our program managers at Intel put together on here. You can go and compare this to past releases. What I heard is, hey, it was one of the big ones yet again. The community is really coming together. One of the other comments he said is that, hey, there's some consolidation in the community. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, companies that used to contribute independently, buying or merging with other companies, now becoming a singular company. So whether that's Cavium and Marvell or others like that. So over time, I think there has been some convergence like that. We'll see how it plays out. I'm hoping that it makes those companies stronger as participants in the community, and the ones from the company that was participating brings in the other company that perhaps wasn't, and they become a bigger contributor to it. So for those of you who did contribute, I think there were, 70 new contributors, which is probably my favorite stat. Every release, I think we go between 40 and I think 70 is a pretty high number of new contributors. And that really is a healthy indicator that the project is continuing to grow, continuing to attract new users and attract new developers. So that's fantastic to see. I think on the next page, he's got some comments on here. The first one is my all-time favorite. The master maintainer workload is very heavy for one person. Thomas, would you agree with that? I think. So the more people that can help out to divide the work across the entire project, the better. It is an awful lot of work, and Thomas has been bearing this burden for many years. The leadership team and the tech board in the project has really tried to make some changes to ease that a little bit, but it still is a tremendous, tremendous work. So please thank him when you get a moment later on for all the work he does, as well as the other tech board members. I talked about, yes, that's a very good idea. I talked about the number of new contributors going up. Is it accurate? 1911 is expected to be the largest release ever? Okay, so another big one coming, which I should skip all the way down towards the bottom when it says need help validating each release. How many people work in validation and testing in here? See, what should really happen is just about everybody should be raising their hand. Because if you're contributing code, you should also have the tests that go with your code to make sure that it works, right? Instead of handing it off and saying, the validation guys will figure it out later on. That's not a scalable model. Nobody likes documentation, and nobody likes to have to do validation and testing, but they are both required elements for our success and the project's success. So I'm going to please ask everybody to step up and do your part there. I talked about contributor convergence, LTS, long-term stable release. This is something of increasing importance in the industry. There's a lot of people that are in sort of the roll your own DPDK world, and for them, they'll take whatever we have whenever we get it. They'll have their own personal stable release, and then they'll backport new patches into it if they want. But what the industry really needs to scale is a strong, stable release coming from the community. I'm involved in another project called LF Edge, which is an umbrella project for a bunch of Edge projects. And they have what's called a project maturity lifecycle of 4 stages. And to progress to stage 3, which is where your project's really maturing, being extensively used and deployed in the industry, one of the requirements is having a solid roadmap and a solid plan you're executing for a long-term stable release. And this is written largely by comm service providers and cloud service providers because their comment is, hey, it's great that you have all these great new features you're developing, but I can't go deploy that in a large scale commercial network. I need something I can count on. And that's why the LTS is so important for this project. So I appreciate those who have stepped up to support that and maintain it over the duration of an LTS. So thank you for that. How many people in here are working on Windows, DPDK for Windows? Anybody? How many people want to admit it? So got a couple. You know, the Windows and Microsoft engagement DPDK has been going on a few years. We've seen those folks show up and give talks at DPDK summits in the US a few times in the past, I think the past couple of years, and they continue to be engaged in the community and the Windows dimension, and of course the Azure dimension. Steve Heminger can talk to you about that if you're interested. Continues to grow, so that's fantastic to see as well. If you think about DPDK, the origins came from the telco, comms, networking space, but the large cloud service providers like Azure, like Amazon, Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, et cetera, are all very well engaged, as well as tier 2 cloud folks. So another great indicator. I think that's probably it. Last line, you know, increased DPDK collaboration across contributing companies. I will tell me, it gives me personally just great, I'll call it great hope for the software humanity, that companies that will compete, you know, against each other very aggressively in the industry will come into an open source project and collaborate as if they were best friends all working for the same company. And I just think that it's a fantastic, it makes open source really special. That's why I personally love these communities, and I think probably a lot of you feel the same way. When you're working with someone, it's not a question about who does he work for, what's his agenda. It's, hey, we're trying to implement this feature, we're trying to make some progress, we're trying to get this release out, we're trying to get this code validated and send it out the door. So it's fantastic to see. Please do take the time over the next 2 days, get to meet at least 4 new people. They could be speakers, they could be people you meet in the hallway, they could be people you share a glass of wine with this evening. Don't go home without knowing someone new. It'll help you grow your own network, and it'll help our community come together a little bit more. Where the money gets spent. So I'm not going to read this slide to you, and the slide doesn't change all that much. But if your company is a DPDK member company, they're currently paying dues to be a member of DPDK, and those funds are used as you see on the screen here. There's a couple of big things, obviously. You'll see the largest, you know, what is it? I guess 56% it says, marketing and events. As I said, these events are probably the single largest expense we have. This year we did an event in India, China. This is our European event. We did a small pilot event in Japan, and we will have an event coming up in the US. The marketing team right now is actively discussing, hey, what do we do next year? What things work great that we continue? What things do we need to modify and adjust? And what things maybe haven't panned out that we need to sort of walk away from and go and do something different? But these events cost a lot of money for venues, food and beverage, lighting, videos, audio-visual gear, etc. And that's where a very large portion of our funds go. There's other portions in here as well. We have a development lab. Where's Jeremy? Is Jeremy somewhere in here? Jeremy, I think, are you giving a talk later on probably? No, okay. But if you do want to know about the DPDK Community Lab at the University of New Hampshire Interoperability Lab, Jeremy's your guy. So there's one person you can meet if you haven't met Jeremy yet. Jeremy's been to several of our events in the past. His lab is very active across several projects, so you can ask him not only about DPDK, you can ask him about other projects, and you can ask him about how his schoolwork's going as well. So those are some of the biggest things from a DPDK budget perspective. Any questions anybody wants to ask about that? I know you're all a bunch of finance aspiring people. All right. We do try to be transparent with where the community's funds go because it's your money and it's frankly our money. At the Linux Foundation, people like Trishan and Jill help us execute what our plans are, but they execute the plans that we come up with. So if there are things you're like, hey, I wish we would do something different, get involved in the marketing committee, get involved with the technical board, giving them inputs, get involved with the governance of the project. We're always looking for people to help out in those areas. Okay, Upcoming events. There is one event left in the U.S., as I mentioned. It is in the Bay Area. It is November 12th through 13th. It's going to be at the Computer History Museum. I've not been to the museum myself. I've seen some of their gear at other fairs in the San Francisco area, and they have some incredibly old computer equipment. My favorite was a tape punch machine. You would go in there and they'd let you type in 2 lines of code, and they'd hand you a punch tape with your code on it. So that's kind of fun. Lots of Fortran systems, Hollerith cards, lots of really interesting old stuff, giant storage platters. And for those of you younger than 30 or 40 who are like, I have no idea what he's talking about, you should go. And then you can find out what those old school things are. They even have some of the old iron core memories, if you guys have ever seen pictures of those or seen them in real life. So the registration page is up. The CFP, I believe, is over. So if you didn't submit for it, I think you're too late. I think it closed September 6th. And my guess is, I don't know if anybody from the community who's working on that, we probably have more than enough submittals. Is that correct? Yep. Okay. So you can look, I would guess probably in another couple of weeks to a month, we'll probably have the schedule posted, but for sure registration is open there. And I definitely encourage folks to attend that event as well to help us close out the year. Lastly, these events don't happen without a whole bunch of people. So I have to pull out my cheat sheet to remember all the names because I never do all the remember the names. So first of all, the organizers. Elodie, she's in here somewhere, I hope. She was instrumental in putting all of this together. Merci beaucoup. Her, and I think you have a few other people on your team who I don't necessarily know their names. Thanks to all of you. And while they're standing up, if you do need something throughout the day, these people have all the answers to all your questions and then some. Suna from the Linux Foundation, who isn't here, she also was very helpful in getting this done. I think we have 3 technicians in the top doing video and audio and keeping us live streaming. Thanks to all of them as well. We have Trishan, where's Trishan, and Jill. From the Linux Foundation, Trishan is our program manager. Jill drives marketing, not only for DPDK, but other projects, and Trishan also manages other projects. So if you guys want to find out about FIDO, you want to find out about OPX, or many other projects in Linux Foundation networking and beyond, you can meet those 2 people during the break as well. Who else am I forgetting? Our marketing team, Tim O'Driscoll, Jill and Trishan are on it, Erez, who couldn't be here today, and of course, Thomas. Thomas, I can't thank you enough for all the work you put in to make this event happen. Thank you. And for those of you who I'm forgetting, my apologies. You always forget someone when you want to try to thank people, and that's the downside of leaving somebody out. So my apologies, and thank you very much. That's all we have. I will hand this over to our next presenter. I don't know how I'm doing on time. I guess I'm a couple minutes late. I believe Thomas is our next presenter. So enjoy your time. As I said, get to meet some new people, network around, and ask a lot of questions. Thank you.